It's a rare condition this day and age to read any good news on the newspaper page. And love and tradition of the grand design, some people say, is even harder to find. Well, then there must be some magic clue inside these gentle walls. 'Cause all I see is a tower of dreams, real love bursting out of every scene.
Shout out to all my inner lights out there for tuning into Starring You. It's Jumorous. Hope all y'all doing your best out there and being blessed out there. Please subscribe, like the page, and share with others. Today we're gonna talk about, the cast of family members. Carl Winslow, Harriet, Urkel, Laura, Eddie, Rachel, the whole fam. We're just gonna get into it, the numbers, but also focus on the zodiac signs. Yes, knowing that they're fictional characters, but however though, with the actual people that are portraying these characters, you'll notice that they have actual something in common, which brought so much warmth to the show and your uniqueness, where everybody stood out individually. Yes, definitely when Urkel started coming about, it would focus more on him, but there's a reason for that too. But overall though, there was a humor to the show that was very fun, intimate, always finding a way to draw you in, and leaving you with a smile. During COVID, chilling with my lady, we were just relaxing, and she's doing the throwback of Family Matters on Hulu. So I was like, all right, let's check it out. And as I was watching, I started getting all these nostalgic feelings again, you know what I'm saying? And I was like saying to myself, what made this show so warm and unique? To me anyway, it resonated with me. So I started checking the zodiac signs of the actual members, who portrayed these characters. And I saw this commonality that really stood out. And one of them is that most of them were fire signs. And the ones that weren't fire signs, they had a fire element to them that still drew them in, which strengthened their compatibilities as actors. And also too, they shared a special bond, as a couple, Harriet and Carl, which we're gonna get into in the numerology aspect. So now let's break it down a little bit, the Family Matters. Reflecting on it now, this is probably the best time to do this video actually, as we approach the end of Leo season. And you're about to see what I mean. When you check out Carl Winslow, played by Reginald Johnson, he's born on August 16. He's a Leo. And Jo Marie Payton, playing Harriet Winslow, one of my favorites, she's born August 3rd, and she's a Leo. But if you look even closely now, you see Mama Winslow, Estelle, played by Rosetta Lenoir. She's born August 8th. You see she's a Leo, and also Richie. Richie played by Brighton James, and he's born August 17. So you see this fire compatibility. And one thing when it comes to Leos, they always shine. That's the uniqueness about them being ruled by the sun. And you see with these particular members, Harriet, Carl, no matter if they're trying to portray a particular persona for the show, still the zodiac sign's still gonna shine. And you can see with Carl Winslow, played by Reginald Johnson, as a Leo, you see he had those Leo energies within him. He's very protective of his household, his family, very loving to his wife, Harriet, showered her with gifts like a Leo would do, They're kind of like that king of the jungle, like I always say, being ruled with that lion energy as a symbol. So you definitely saw that with Carl Winslow as a Leo, though, it was a character, fictional character. You saw that energy there. But, and also too, you could also see those anger moments, those anger tantrums when he got really explosive and angry, just like a Leo, and showed that rage, which he portrayed really well, where it was very realistic, and it fit perfectly because of that sign that he has. And you can see of Harriet, born August 3rd, even with Jo Marie being a Leo, but you saw that energy within the character, Harriet standing up like that lioness with a lot of pride every time in that energy. Very feminine, always well dressed and kept well. But also had that mother-like energy, humorous, and just warmth, where people just come to her. It's just like a second mother to most people who were just watching TV screens. So you just pick up that energy and you can see the bond between the two of them, as a couple. But also it made this magnetism so unique, within the universe, and probably made the show stand out, especially in the beginning before Steve Urkel came about. You know, just them two holding it down along for still all the cast members, you know, just having their uniqueness as fire signs. But those two people particularly, played by Reginald Vell Johnson and Joe Marie. See that Reg was born the 16th and Joe Marie was born the 3rd.
Say 98.
When you combine these two together, you see this 19 vibration, which is a number of harmony and unity, bringing a lot of warmth with that 1 and 9 vibration, both being ruled by a fire element. It's actually recommended if you are a couple starting a family, it's positive to live in a house that adds to 19. And you know, give it some time, you'll see this flourishment. Definitely something that you saw of Carl and Harriet, what they brought with Family Matters. People just liked them as a couple and they just had that connection we could definitely feel, you know. They just did a good job together as a role. But it definitely had something to do with that vibration in real life of them, one being born the 16th, the other being born 3rd, but also them being Leos, and Leo just had that warmth about them. And they actually do great when it comes to family, so. And you also see this with, you know, Mama Winslow, you know, played by Rosetta. You see of her being born August 8th, this actually showed too, you know, her loving family, but also having that moment in uniqueness where she just had a moment where she just went out and about. You know, when it comes to Leos, they always know how to keep themselves young and rejuvenated, and this actually showed in that character. But also too, with her being born the 8th too, it shows that she went to tough times, and she also shows the strongness and toughness about her, definitely. Which you could definitely see in her character, you know, when the show gets more personal, when the kids are going through something, or even when she's just cracking jokes at Carl, you know, there's a sternness there too. You know, it could come off rigid, but very humorous, because at the end of the day, you know, her as a Leo and everybody else, Carl and Harriet, who stand out, they just have that shine about them, which is gonna keep things afloat and upbeat, you know. Leos being a sign that really likes kids, is just gonna come to territory, and it complemented the show really well, which could show that portrayal, you know, because of the zodiac signs too, playing an effect with everything. Now I'm gonna definitely get into Richie, but right now I'm gonna focus on, you know, the characters that had like a bigger role and you show up more frequently, who you're familiar with. And you know, I'm gonna get into the kids, you know, which is Eddie Winslow and Laura Winslow. When it comes to Eddie, you know, he's played by Darius Jaron McCary, you know, who was born on May 1st. He's a Taurus. And you know, Laura Winslow, whose name is Kelly, well, I'm not gonna butcher that, so I'm gonna say Kelly Jackson, you know. She's born March 22nd, she's an Aries. So you see one dynamic, you see that other 5 compatibility with Laura Winslow being a fire sign, or a person that played Laura Winslow, Kelly, she's a fire sign, being compatible with the Leos and the other characters of Harriet and Estelle along with Carl. So you see that compatibility. But also you see with Eddie, you know, with the character being born on May 1st, you see that number 1. That 1 is ruled by the sun, it's ruled by Leo. You see, so that 1 energy also draws in that energy towards the family and makes everything come together, bringing in that warmth. But also with that 1 energy, you know, him being the older brother. When it comes to people that's born the 1st, you know, they're initiators, they just have that leader-like energy about them. And it's not uncommon for a Leo to know somebody that's born the 1st because of that 1 frequency. So this is why you see that warmth there where it complements Eddie, but also too with that 1 energy, it brings out this masculinity, and women tend to be attracted to this natural energy of people born on the 1st. And also to complement this, remember Darius is a Taurus, and one thing that stands out about Taurus is their voices. You know, they rule the throat region, so because of this, they could be really good singers. You know, which you saw in certain episodes of him playing Eddie. But also keep in mind too, with him being born the 1st, with that Leo energy, he's gonna be protective, and he's seen that episode when he's gonna fight Ted because of Laura. With 1 energy babies, they tend to be attracted to action-packed movies. So you see, he took after his father and he became a cop too. And in actuality, when it comes to real life with somebody being born the 1st, they will be attracted to something that has some kind of thing with dealing with military or cops, because it's the number of the commander. So you see that this really complemented the show really well with Eddie Winslow. You know, we didn't get to Laura Winslow, and you know, one thing I definitely seen with her character, you know, the real character that played her, you know, who was Kelly Jackson, her being an Aries. And one thing I would say about Aries, one of their favorite colors on the low, even if they don't want to admit it, is red, or they show some type of red. And, you know, like that shows that, yo, this person's an Aries, whether it's a red car or like having like red shoes on, something red, you know, they're just attracted to that color. But they make gold really look good, you know, secretively. That's one thing, especially the females, you know, they make it look fly. That's our secret color. I guess that's why Leos are attracted to them, that sun energy, and you see an Aries wearing yellow. But I guess to put icing on the cake, I always wanted to mention this. When you look at Reginald Noble, who's Red Man, he's an Aries. So I guess there's no coincidence when it comes to Aries and that color red. And with that being in mind, it definitely showed Laura Winslow, that Aries-like energy of her being bold. You definitely saw that in her confidence. But also of her being born March 22nd, with that water-like energy with the number attached to it, you seen that sensitivity too. Anytime Steve Urkel would do something charming or nice, she always showed that emotional aspect where she was drawn to it. She played it really well, but it also had to do with those frequencies coming together for her zodiac sign too, coming together, making everything feel sentimental. And also you see with her being born with that cusp energy Pisces, and that 22 vibration, which is really feminine. You see over time how she blossomed within the series, had that beauty about her, but also she had that short hair, which is also interesting as an Aries, because I noticed that a lot of female Aries tend to cut their hair. Sometimes they do this in the process, they go through a certain change, and because of that, they could cut their hair, but once they try to grow it back again, sometimes the process may be a little harder, so they may stick with it. However, though, I do see a lot of women who are Aries that do have this particular style, but it fits them really well. But with Kelly Jackson being born March 22nd and portraying his character as Laura Winslow, you can actually feel it complimenting Eddie Winslow, being played by Darius. Him being a Taurus and her coming off that Pisces energy, that cusp energy, that water, earth energy, both complement each other really well. And him having that one quality that's fire and her being a fire sign, it goes together. So it fit really well as them as siblings playing these two characters, which is kind of dope. But also too, if you look closely at that as well, him being born the 1st and her being born the 22nd, that 22 breaks down to a 4. The 1, 4, and 7, they fall on the physical plane. So it even creates more solidarity for this to construct itself in the universe, for it to bring this harmonious flow for us to see. But one thing with Laura Winslow, get back to her, with her being an Aries born March 22nd, one thing she definitely attracts as a fire sign is other fire signs. And one person in particular who was attracted to her, was Steve Urkel, played by Jaleel White. And it's interesting to see because Jaleel White, he's a Sagittarius. Born on November 27, it's interesting to see when you break down that 27, that 2 plus 7, it equals a 9, and that 9 is ruled by Mars, which is Aries. So that 9 energy will draw him towards her and vice versa. And not to mention, what I said earlier about Law and that color red. Being that 9 rules Aries, you see that Steve Urkel himself wears a lot of red too in the show, which is kind of interesting as a Sagittarius. But you see this attraction that they had, that magnetism, though in the show, Laura was kind of annoyed by him, but at the same time, with the character that he had and portrayed, he had a charm about it, which Aries will easily soak in, and she showed that in that character. So it's kind of interesting to see that kind of dynamic. And also, you gotta keep in mind, Aries are attracted to intelligence, so being that Steve Urkel had this characteristic about him, she still kept him around, despite his annoyance. Though it's scripted like that in the show, but still, it kind of shows like that in the number dynamics too, that frequency. Sagittarius being the type of sign that has the wits, and it being him being born in that November energy of Scorpio, he would be kind of studious and come off nerdy if he was to tap into that frequency. And matter of fact, I believe Bill Nye, the science guy, actually has the same birthday as Jaleel White, and he's born November 27. But if Steve Urkel or Jaleel White, having that 27 frequency and it having that Mars energy to it, being drawn to Laura, it played this role really well and suit the character for everything to fit and accommodate. And also with Laura, or Kelly Jackson being an Aries, and one thing about Aries, they like the sense of attention, being that they're the first out of the month, so they like that baby-like energy. So it's positive, with Steve Urkel being around her, always showering her, complimenting her, and it just accommodated the situation really well where it fit, despite his annoyance in the show as a character. And Jaleel White being a fire sign, playing Steve Urkel, it still blended well with the show, though he came on unexpectedly. At the beginning, it was family oriented and it really had a nice flow to it. But when Steve Urkel came about, it kind of changed and focused on him. But however though, you notice that there wasn't much friction once Steve Urkel started showing himself more frequently, and that could be due to the fact, Jaleel White being a fire sign, complementing the other cast members who are fire signs. So there was just a fluidity right there where everything just blended. But also Jaleel White, he has a dynamic behind him of him being a Sagittarius and being born on the 27th, that being breaking down to the 9 frequency. Aries. You know, Aries and Sagittarius go together really well, complement each other really well. So in somewhat shape or form, he sees in harmony with himself. You know, even Bruce Lee has his birthday. He's born at 27 too. So you got to keep this in mind. This is why Jaleel White, as Steve Urkel, was so dynamic and had like this vibrant energy and character about him, especially as a Sagittarius. You know, Sagittarius being the sign of entertainment too. You know, you can see like Richard Pryor or Jamie Foxx or DMX, for example. They just had this character about them, and being fire signs, they just know how to bring it to life. Though they could come out shy and timid, but they are comfortable in their timid zone and know how to like have that fire boil up little by little till it could become flames and catch on to things. And this is how you see Sagittarius rise. You know, but with that 9/27 energy, you're gonna see that boldness too within that character, Steve Urkel. And this was one thing actually that Lord Winslow actually admired about him, his courageous heart. And you can actually see that in certain episodes in the beginning, how he fought for a lot. And that's actually how he won her heart in the end. So that 27 energy being ruled by Mars, always being bold and courageous, is something that's very complimentary. And you know, Steve Urkel being played by Jaleel White and him being in Sagittarius, that definitely showed in itself throughout the show, you know. Definitely you see that humor aspect, him taking the spotlight and being very entertaining and not falling off. But also too, you could also see that clumsy aspect too. You know, they say Sagittarius tend to be clumsy because they're always looking up to the sky and with the optimism going, you know, looking up. So that's just one aspect, which is definitely true with the character that you did see in Steve Urkel. He was always optimistic, which is definitely evident, you know. That's one aspect about him that kept the show very vibrant and positive, and why people are so drawn to it with his humor. And you know, with him being born on the 27, in real life, Jaleel White, one thing with that Scorpio energy that's gonna be attached to him, they're gonna be very studious and have that scientific thing about them. So him being like a geek or nerdy really attracted other people, made them really curious of what he's gonna do next when he came with these crazy different inventions. But it's not uncommon, like I was saying, like Bill Nye the Science Guy, he's born the same day as Steve Urkel, Jaleel White is 27. But also too, you could also see that Dr. Sebi, you know, RP to him. Actually, as I'm recording this, August 6th, this is actually the day he passed away. But, you know, he's born on November 26th, you know, right before the day Jaleel White was born. And you see he had that studious energy about him because he shared that Scorpio energy. So this character was actually portrayed well with Jaleel White playing Steve Urkel. You know, though once he came around in the show, he started taking the shine from everybody. But keep in mind, you know, that Sagittarius energy and him being born with that 27 frequency, Jaleel White, like it's just a lot of fire right there in itself. I didn't even check out the life path, but who knows what that is, but probably a 1. It actually isn't a 1, it's a 7. And that's interesting because born to 27 as well, and you see that same vibration there too. And one thing about people born to 7 that have the life path 7, they're great at inventing things. You know, similar to Gemini, but with them, they'll be more specific and do something that they love that has some type of purpose behind it. Doing something that could benefit humanity and even elevate them spiritually or just on a metaphysical level is something that a person with a life path 7 could dive into and want to create and bring to the physical world and manifest it. And I'm definitely sure Jaleel White, you know, playing Steve Urkel, had a lot of fun with his life path being a 7 and dive into his character who was very inventive, who was a scientist, you know. You see his analytical skills, you know, very skillful, the pool table, also, you know, played cards, poker. But even remember the episode 2 when he was bragging about how good he was in ball, and, you know, brought that team from that 20 deficit. So you've seen those skills with that 7 vibration being analytical, but also 2, the inventive side, you know, creating that chamber and the robot. So it's just certain examples, and you can tell that Jaleel White definitely had fun playing that character, especially as the Sagittarius. You know, the native Sagittarius are great at mastering the alter ego and bringing it to life. So there's definitely one thing you saw Jaleel White being a Sagittarius. But also keep in mind, you see with him being born at 27, breaking down to a 9, and you see Carl Winslow. Carl Winslow is born to 16, that breaks down 7. You see that 9-7 vibration that adds up to a 16. And with that 16 vibration, it brings clashes and argument at times, you know, and differences, which is definitely evident with Carl Winslow and Steve Urkel, which made the show so funny at times when they would clash. However though, keep in mind too, with Carl Winslow being a Leo, a fire sign, he compliments Steve Urkel being a fire sign, Sagittarius. So you see, even despite all those clashes with that 16 vibration, You still saw those warm moments too, with both of them being fire signs compatible with that friendship. And also Carl Winslow being that Leo, being protected of Sagittarius and their naive nature, will naturally be played well with Vel Johnson being a Leo. So this is actually really positive and dope. Probably one of my favorite moments in the show. But you know, we're not gonna end it there. Definitely can't forget about Rachel and Richie. Rachel being played by Thelma Hopkins, born on October 28. One thing you notice, she's a Scorpio, but also too, she's born in October, so she carries some of that air vibration coming from Libra. Compliment most of the actors who were Leos, or fire signs, I should say. So you see this very positive. However though, remember, she's still a Scorpio, and Scorpios too get along really well with Leos, as you can see with like Big Pun and Fat Joe. And actually, I did a blog on this on Quora, which I'll leave a link in the description, talking about the similarities between Leos and Scorpios, which is kind of popular and trending right now. You can check it out. But you know, with Rachel, or Thelma Hopkins, you know, playing this character, Rachel, you see that her Scorpio energy complements the show really well. But also too, you see that 28, it breaks down to a 1, just like Eddie. So that 1 ruled by Leo also complements most of the cast members who are Leos, like Harriet and Carl, but also the grandma. But also look more deep into that too. Like I was saying, that 1 vibration always draws the Leos in. You see that her sister Harriet was a Leo, born on the 3rd of August. So you see how that all comments together. But to put icing on the cake too, Richie, he was born August 17, and he's a Leo, and you see that was her child. So you see how they put all that together in the universe. Or I should say, the universe definitely knew what they were doing, you know, putting all these actors together for it to have such a positive and great vibration for us to see, you know, 20 years later, reflecting back. And also, not to mention, it did last 9 seasons. You know that number 9 is a number of completion. That fire energy being ruled by Aries. You know, at the end of it, when it's all said and done, you gotta go through the fire to have a great result and come whole. And definitely was a wholesome show. Family matters. Shout out to somebody in the lights out there for tuning into thestarinyou. Definitely appreciate you guys for checking out the show. Stay tuned for more. Glad you guys lasted this long. And remember, guys, always, let your inner light shine.